Welcome to Trauma Tea and Tangents, the podcast for those of you who feel like you've never fully been seen, for those whose experiences seem to be chronically invalidated, and for those who have been told they are too much and not enough all at the same time. I'm Hannah Guy, a trauma therapist and the owner of Revive Therapy Services based out of Philadelphia. And this podcast is all about the messy, complicated, and very real parts of being human. Mental health, relationships, trauma, healing, and honestly, just basic life shit. You name it, and we will probably talk about it here. Just a little disclaimer for you. This is not therapy. Nobody's going to make you do a body scan or talk about your triggers. Unless you really want to, then go off, queen. And with all of that being said, let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trauma Tea and Tangents. This is Hannah, your host. With me today, I have our guest, Christina Spurlock. She's a licensed mental health counselor, and she has her own practice called Health Insight Counseling. She specializes in EMDR, trauma, and particularly really likes working with people who have a history of sexual trauma and who are first responders. Christina, welcome on.
Thank you. I feel very welcomed.
Yeah, I'm glad. We're all also welcome today. No, I was really excited to have you on because I've seen your content on social media and I related to it. And I think, yeah, you can be fun, you can be serious, and it's a good balance.
Yeah, mostly therapist humor, but I think
Yeah.
also, it's nice to give people who are in therapy who maybe aren't licensed therapists like a interesting insider look at like what therapists are going through, just to kind of humanize them a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of like my goal was starting it was to advocate for EMDR and how amazing it is, but then also like to humanize therapists because I think that makes our work really important since it's based on like your relationship with the client. Yeah.
I love that. And I'm like, oh, I did want a whole tangent about recognizing therapists because it's about building relationships, right?
Yeah.
And if your therapist is just stone cold face, informal, right? That's really hard to do, that deeper attachment work.
Yeah, the
But
power differential is awful. Like the power differential is one that like fuck that. Like I don't understand how like that got therapists and psychologists so far. That's my soapbox. It was like my whole thing is breaking down that power differential because there's no fucking way that I'm an expert on my client. There's no way. I'm an expert in my field potentially, hopefully, but like not on my client's life. And so that's kind of where it's really good that therapists are humbled and not the experts and willing to like take in information and learn new things rather than being this all-knowing being that's like, I'm going to heal you and fix you. Yeah, I roll.
100% eye roll. No, it's so true. And I'm like, oh, it's the patriarchy. Like, right? That's why.
Yeah.
But that little tangent aside, on our podcast, Trauma Tea and Tangents, we completed the tangent.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to talk about EMDR today.
Mm-hmm.
I see it a lot on social media. I see it in TV shows and movies now too,
Yeah,
which
it's weird.
is interesting. You are trained or certified in EMDR?
Yep, I've been doing it since 2016, so for 10 years. Yeah, and so I'm a fully certified EMDR therapist, and I'm also I don't know what it's called, like a trainer in training or something.
A consultee in training?
Yeah, something like that, where it's like I'm also a licensed supervisor in the state of Washington, but I like am working towards being like an EMDR supervisor as well.
You know all things EMDR.
I would like to think that I know all things EMDR, and also I am learning new things every single fucking day.
Yeah, the brain is always evolving, our knowledge is always evolving.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. No, I have been doing EMDR since like 2021, I think. And then 2 years later, I got certified in EMDR. And so it's one of the biggest modalities I use with clients. And that's one of the reasons why clients come to see me is because they want to use EMDR. So EMDR, let's talk about just the basics, what it is, what it stands for, and kind of how you maybe would describe it to someone who has no clue what it is.
Yeah. So EMDR, it sounds a lot fancier maybe than it is. I don't know. Like eye movement desensitization reprocessing therapy sounds like a mouthful and it sounds like a lot. Also, because it has eye movements in the title, a lot of people think that EMDR therapy is just moving your eyes back and forth or it's just something involving your eyes, which is not the case. EMDR is a full protocol, meaning that it starts from phase 1 history taking and goes all the way to phase 8, which is reevaluation. Not every session gets through all 8 protocols or phases, but there is definitely this like sense of, even if you might be doing talk therapy, if the goal is that you're going to be reprocessing these memories that you talk about in talk therapy, then you're still doing EMDR therapy, even though your eyes are not moving back and forth and that's not occurring quite yet. So I think when I tell clients what EMDR therapy is, I really break it down with sometimes when you have a traumatic experience, it's never about the actual experience that occurs. It's how your body responds to that experience. So what one traumatic thing for someone could be would maybe not be registered as trauma for another person. Let me catch my breath. So much
You
information.
are
One moment.
good. EMDR is one of those things that my first day of EMDR training, I was like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So it's kind of an abstract
Yeah.
concept. And so it can be really hard to understand.
Yeah. And so when someone maladaptively stores trauma, meaning that like the reaction that they had was so traumatic that they were not able to process what was actually happening, all encompassing pieces of the trauma at one time, it gets stored maladaptively, just meaning that your brain doesn't store it like any other memory. It stores it differently. And how it's stored could be different for every other person too. So like there's not one wrong, right way of storing it, one right, wrong way. And so basically what EMDR does is it helps you sort of uncover all of the things that were not processed in the moment in a safe way so that the memory gets stored adaptively or it gets stored in a way that then your brain and body can use that information that wasn't learned in the moment to then learn about yourself and say, oh, I'm safe now. I survived. Everything's good. That most likely will not happen again. If it does, I'll survive it. I'll tackle it. And so it's a really amazing way. I kind of talk about it in terms of like this bubble, right? So the trauma gets stored in terms of like a bubble. Everything is encapsulated in the bubble. So you have what was going through your mind, you have what was going through all 5 of your senses, you have the body positioning, like what your body was doing during that time. Then you have what your body actually did to help you survive that. When we do EMDR processing, essentially, we're not popping the bubble, so to speak, so that everything gets flooded, but we're sort of like minimizing the largeness of the size of the bubble so that everything is processed as your brain deems it is able to process it to minimize the distress that that overall memory causes you physically, mentally, spiritually, etc.
Yeah. No, I haven't heard of the bubble concept. I like it. How I describe it to clients is I I use that word maladaptive as well. And I really try to harp on with clients. It doesn't mean that your brain is bad or you did anything wrong. It's for some reason, and we can go through a lot of risk factors of why someone's brain might not process an event in an adaptive way. But for some reason, your brain decided that this event situation that happened, it couldn't digest it fully, and so there's like pieces that are stuck. So I almost say it's kind of like, what's it called? Like a record player just on loop
Yeah.
over and over and over.
Yeah.
I also use our brains like to have a beginning, middle, and end tied up in a neat bow. A plus B equals C. And when you have an experience that's maladaptive, your brain kind of just gets stuck on the A plus B. And then it just keeps sitting there, A plus B, A plus B, A plus B, and it can't get to the C. And so I kind of say EMDR is a way for us to assist your brain in getting to the adaptive response it ideally should have gotten to in the past, but for some reason didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have the full formula, A plus B equals C.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your brain and your body were too busy keeping you alive and surviving and like not thinking before you were acting out of survival, out of our reptilian brain, right? Like that it didn't have time to process anything that was happening and to learn from it or store it or make meaning of it or whatever. And so typically, like, not only is it stored maladaptively, but then in our brain, but then also we develop maladaptive, like, cognitions about ourselves based on how it was stored, or based on what was stored. And so, if we have like a car accident or something, and then we're sitting in a car again, our brain is not really able to separate that car that I was in, that I got the accident in, that wasn't safe, but this car I'm in right now is safe. Like, it
Like,
has a really hard time because it's not stored correctly, a very hard time differentiating between the past and the present. And so that is what's really helpful about EMDR, is like grounding yourself in the present moment and being like, "Oh, what happened to me was not safe. I survived it and I'm safe now."
I like to explain to people when we're talking about trauma too, that it doesn't have to be this huge trauma, right? Big T trauma of you got in a car accident. Yes, EMDR is great. Fantastic for that, actually. It can be for anything,
Hmm.
right? It could be for a negative belief. It could just be like, I just have this chronic feeling that I'm not enough. And no matter what I do, I'm not enough. And the cool thing about EMDR is it's not, you don't have to go into EMDR therapy thinking, okay, I have this one specific memory that caused me this one trauma. And if I just figure out this memory, then I'm going to be okay. You can go into EMDR and just say, I just have this chronic feeling that like I'm not enough or I'm helpless all the time. I'm not safe. Right. And just say, I have
Yeah.
no clue what memories are associated with that or why that's the case. But
Yeah.
the about EMDR is we can figure out what I don't maybe not even memories, but moments in life are associated with that.
Yeah, themes, like themes. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm currently working with a ton of clients who have a lot of like dissociative stuff happening, meaning that they don't remember anything from like 12 years and younger. And a lot of people, when EMDR was first coming out, would say, oh, well, then you can't do EMDR with them because they don't have memories to work on. But we're finding that that's absolutely not the case, and that you don't actually need to even hold a memory. You could even process a story that someone has told you about yourself that you don't remember. I mean, it's really adaptive, and I think that's why a lot of therapists are getting trained in EMDR, is because like it can be adapted to any client situation, like anything. And even though the 8 protocols are there, they can be flexible, they can be loose. It doesn't have to be something you follow to the T for the therapist or the client. And that's why it's just so amazing that it really could be adapted to any situation to help, which kind of sounds like it's this magic wand that you wave it and like it fixes things. And all that really means is that it's adaptable to whatever you bring into an EMDR therapist session.
Yeah. Yeah, EMDR is having its moment right now in culture, which
It's
is
just kind
great.
of cool.
It
Yeah.
is cool. And I think sometimes I would be guilty of this too if I wasn't a therapist. When we go to therapy, we just want that pill that fixes everything, right? That I just need to do EMDR and then I'll be okay. And it's way more nuanced than that.
Hmm.
Way more nuanced. So a lot of the work that I'll do with people is setting appropriate expectations with what they can get or not get out of EMDR.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, they know what they're getting into.
Totally. Yeah.
And also explaining that there are some people who that I've worked with at EMDR, their brain, it just soaks it up like a sponge. Like in one session, boom, they have what we call, for people listening to this, we call clearing a memory, which is essentially like you resolved, or how would you word that, Christina? Clearing a memory.
You reduce the distress of the memory
Yeah.
down quite a bit, so that when you can recall the memory, it really doesn't stress out your body or your brain to think about it. And you know that you're not reliving it.
Yeah. Like I've had some clients who one session they cleared a memory. And I'm sitting there and I've been doing EMDR for a couple years now. And I still will sometimes be like, what the fuck was that? In a
Hmm.
good way.
Yeah.
Like it just is amazing how quickly their brain can take certain things and resolve whatever needs to be resolved. It still shocks me. And then
Hmm.
I have clients where okay, it takes a couple sessions. I work a lot with complex PTSD and I find that we are kind of constantly working on like one memory for a good chunk of time.
Hmm.
Where I've worked with people who have more big T acute traumas where it seems like their brain is able to clear out the traumatic memory more easily.
Hmm.
And so it's just everyone's brain is different. And really, we don't know why your brain likes EMDR or doesn't like EMDR. And EMDR is not a one size fits all. I've had clients where it's just the way they see the world and the way they think. EMDR, I don't think is necessarily the best therapeutic modality for them. I think they'd probably do better with like somatic experiencing or, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so it's not just EMDRs for everyone. Everyone should try EMDR. If it works for you, I love that. But also, if it doesn't, there's other ways you can heal trauma besides it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean for my work, like it's definitely adapted like EMDR is adapted, but I mean, I've adapted to integrating other modalities into EMDR. And so right now, what I'm finding works the absolute best for my super avoidant, super traumatized, don't trust anybody clients is doing EMDR with somatic interweaves, like just not even focusing on a negative cognition or a negative thought, like just doing body stuff. I'm focusing on like, what do you feel in your body without even really coming up with anything to go along with that so that they can get practice of feeling their body and like recognizing that distress passes, it's not permanent, it can move through you. And then also adding in like IFS or internal family systems to that. And so doing parts work. And that actually has been the thing for me in my work that I have found has been a fucking game changer, is because the reason why EMDR works for some of my clients and not for others is because there are protective parts there that say, I'm not ready to go there yet, or I can't go there yet, or I'm afraid if we go there, I won't survive, or I worry that I don't trust like this therapist, even though we've been working together for years. Some part of me cannot get myself to trust that she knows what she's doing. Like I've been steering the ship for years and years and years, and this bitch is going to come in and say, yeah, let's process this. Hell no. My system's going to come to a fucking halt and I'm not going to be able to function. And so like there are completely legitimate reasons why some brains are just not up to doing EMDR. And typically, from what I've found, it's that there are resistant parts. And so you have to do a lot of parts work in order for like brains to be or clients to be able to do that EMDR work and have it stick.
Yeah. No, I love using parts work and somatic interweaves as well with clients. A lot of my clients have complex trauma. And so when they come to me, their window of tolerance is very small.
Hmm.
And they're just like so wanting relief, right? They're like, I just need to be able to function. And it's hard because I have to say, hey, like we can build up to doing EMDR, but with your window of tolerance, we need to build up the capacity for you to go back and reprocess this memory, or else it's not fair to you. It's
Hmm.
untherapeutic and it's mean. It would be mean of me to put, to put you back into this memory,
Hmm.
knowing that you don't have the ability. What we like to say is like one foot in the present and one foot in the past.
Hmm. Yeah,
However,
it'd be like if I came to you and I said I'm terrified of spiders, and you're like, "Great, here's 4 spiders. Why don't you touch them?" Like it's terrifying. It's like I'm not ready to do that. I'm telling you, like this isn't going to work for me, and it's like that needs to be honored.
and for people who've been through trauma, their autonomy has been taken away from them most of
Totally.
the time, right? So a big part of this is letting the client have as much control and be a part of as many decisions.
Yeah, and be fully informed, like to fully know, like, what does it feel like? What is it? And it's really hard to describe like what EMDR feels like to somebody who has not tried it yet. And so, really, just kind of letting them know, well, sometimes, I mean, the old, what was it? Like the Francine Shapiro like metaphor was like, it's kind of like you're riding on a train or a bus and you're staring out the window and like a bunch of memories are passing you by. And, it's just kind of like a lot of things are going to come up for you at one time, but also too, like I'm now learning that that is a very neurotypical way of approaching or kind of describing what EMDR is.
Yeah.
Because for my neurodivergent clients, that's absolutely not what they experience when they do EMDR. For them, it's completely different. And sometimes we can't even attack or like approach targets linearly. We have to go from what's the most recent thing to what's the most like the first thing that happened to you. And so, like, describing it to them with as much information you have about them, as much information as you, the EMDR therapist, have about like yourself and your process and like what other clients who've maybe been in similar situations have experienced is all really important. But I think really emphasizing there's no one way that I could describe what it is to you. So let's try it on something positive or small, or, let's try it so that you get that firsthand experience of what it's like. And if you don't like it, then like, let's go try something else.
Right, exactly. No, I'm really happy you brought that up because I think during my EMDR training, it was very drilled in your head of this is the protocol.
Hmm.
the 8 phases,
Yeah.
3 prongs, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the protocol, and you have to follow it to a T. And I think that's nice in theory. And I honestly, if I'm gonna be transparent with you, I maybe have had like 1 or 2 clients where I have completed the EMDR protocol with the 3 prongs, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
past, present, and future.
Mhm.
It's like never like that.
Absolutely.
Typically, it's I'm modifying it and accommodating it to what is working and not working with my
Yeah, and what
clients.
they're needing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think having that foundation of I understand the 8 phases, it's having that foundational work so you really understand in and out what EMDR does and doesn't do. But then the cool thing about EMDR is as a clinician, I get to be creative and I get to use my creativity to adapt it to
Mhm.
client and meeting them where they're at.
Mhm.
And so that also means potentially doing it in ways that like Francine Shapiro would not be.
She'd be rolling in her fucking grave.
Yeah. Like I have been working with a client where we did EMDR in the past and it was helpful for that traumatic memory, but I was like a baby EMDR therapist and she went over that threshold. And so now her body has this fear of EMDR,
Yeah.
right? And she's like, I really want to do it, but I'm scared. And so we're now kind of trying to come up with a way to approach it where she feels in control and using parts work of, hey, that part that's scared to do EMDR, what does it need
Mhm.
in that moment? Okay, well, what has she said? She's like, honestly, Hannah, can I be off camera? Because I'm doing virtual. And I've worked with this client for a while, right? And so I'm kind of like, I can honor that. And the agreement is you need to tell me if we're hitting that level of distress where you're going outside of that window of
Yeah.
tolerance. And I trust her to tell me that.
Yeah, totally.
Traditional EMDR therapy would be like, fuck no.
Mhm.
Like you need to have eyes on that
Yeah,
all the time. And I'm like, no, she needs to have control over this process.
totally.
And so I'm going to try to adapt it and modify it to what feels most safe and therapeutic for her.
Mhm.
I've also done it I have clients who, it's interesting. This works for clients who've tried EMDR in the past and been, it's caused some type of trauma. Traditional bilateral stimulation. And for those of you who do not know what that is, it's the eye movement piece of EMDR. And what
Yeah, the
bilateral,
left to right movement.
yes, yes. And so you can do that outside of just eye movements. You can
Mhm.
do that through tapping back and forth on your leg or on your arms, right to left to right. You can do it with auditory, right? I actually have found though that these people who have a history of trauma with EMDR going to those traditional ways of like eye movements or tapping, it's too traumatic in of itself. So what I'll have them
Mhm.
do is I'll have them draw bilateral like
Yeah.
BLS.
Yeah.
And so they're just like sitting there scribbling.
Mhm.
And it's really freaking cool because
Yeah,
we've created an avenue that is now safe for them to engage in EMDR without it triggering the trauma that EMDR caused.
totally.
Do you find that I mean, you've been practicing for 10 years, looking back at you 10 years ago as an EMDR therapist to now, what do you think the biggest jumps have been?
I think it's when you're first starting out with EMDR after learning it, you have your little workbook and you're reading from the book and you're doing the script and you're not going off script and you're not really tailoring it to the client. You're just following the script because you don't want to fuck up. You don't want to traumatize anyone. Like you just are wanting to do it right. And I I completely understand like doing that. And again, for some clients, especially if they're neurotypical and don't have a lot of like little t traumas, that'll work. The protocol, the standard protocol, reading it cover to cover, that'll work. My biggest thing is, I mean, I've memorized it. Like I could literally tell you the script in my sleep, like what the whole protocol is, what the, things are for every single phase. And also, because I know that information, I'm then able to pick and choose and kind of adapt and figure out, okay, so what phase do we need to be on? What's applicable? Okay, do we need to stop this and actually go back to phase two to do resourcing? Like, what do we need to do right now? And so I think the biggest aspect of growth has really been, you have to kind of master it to then make it your own. And so like I commend myself for, the first 3 years it really took me to like get very comfortable with it to where I didn't have to read the script. And then it took me the last 7 years to really make it my own and to actually make it like my own for the client's sake and really adapt it and make it so that it actually targets and solves what the client is wanting to resolve. So, yeah, I mean, I think really just playing with it and understanding the nuances of it so that you can implement new things that maybe aren't in the protocol, but you understand the reasoning why because you get the mechanism of EMDR. And like with like something that I've recently implemented since COVID, since I was still seeing clients in person during COVID and still getting very close to them and doing the physical eye movements with my hands, and I'm waving my hands back and forth, right to left right now to demonstrate. Like something that I implemented was wireless tappers that I control. I control the speed of them and the vibration intensity from the tappers that my clients wear around their wrist, or they can hold them in their hands or put them under their legs or something. But I control sort of the speed and the intensity based on what the client is needing. And I have found that I just use them with every client, whether we're actually processing in session right then and there, or we're just doing like quote unquote talk therapy or history taking to get more information. We just do the tappers because my practice has evolved where I'm seeing primarily neurodivergent clients. And that tapping, that left to right movement is actually extremely helpful with sort of sorting through like what they're wanting to talk about. I find that we have less tangents. I find that we have more emotion. I find that we're more grounded. There's less dissociation. And so that has been like a huge pivot for my practice is just to implement the tappers with every client, every session. To just really do that. And there are some clients where they're like, this is way too fucking distracting and I'm not going to wear these. And I'm like, oh, you don't have to. Don't worry about it. Like it's not a requirement at all. But the ones who do wear it, I'm like, I'd like to try something different today. I'd like you to wear these and just kind of tell me at the end of session what you noticed or what you didn't notice. You might even tune them out and not even know that you're wearing them. And like 90% of the clients that I have wear them say like, wow, this is actually pretty helpful to get me to like, focus a little bit more or articulate or slow down or feel, what I'm feeling. And so that's
Yeah,
been pretty great.
that's really cool. I'm gonna steal that from you.
Yeah, you should.
Do you just do in person
I
therapy?
do like 60% in person and 40% online because I'm still seeing folks that I started with during COVID. And so like those folks, like I primarily saw like online because they were looking for a therapist just anywhere. And so we're not physically in the same location. And so we wouldn't be able to do that. But I prefer to do in person. And eventually I'd like to get to like 100% in person.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I think virtual therapy has made it a lot more accessible for
Yes,
people to receive therapy, right?
definitely.
But there's like pros and cons to each, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Pros and cons to each, like everything. Do you have, so for your virtual clients, and do you have them use the tappers back? Like, do you have them just like tap back and forth on their legs?
Potentially. So for a lot of them, like I have encouraged them to buy their own tappers because like I give them exercises to use outside to strengthen their window of tolerance. And for those folks who don't know what window of tolerance means, it essentially just means your threshold for tolerating distress so that you don't go too like panicky or too collapsy. And so like I encourage them to have their own tappers. And then I actually have a program where I can control them remotely if clients feel comfortable with that so that I can control and set the pace. But if they don't feel comfortable and it's a financial burden. So like if you don't have the money or you just don't want to do that, I do have a program where it does have like the eye movements back and forth, or even just in my camera, I can move my hands back and forth. I have had some clients like kind of tap like their body as I'm doing the eye movements. So they get the eye movements and the tapping, which is very helpful. But yeah, primarily like I have them wear the tappers if they can.
Love that. I wanted to also get your perspective. Why does EMDR work? Why does
Yeah.
bilateral stimulation, right? This right to left movement with your eyes tapping back and forth with headphones. Like, why does it work? What is your understanding of that?
Yeah. So, how it was described to me and like my understanding of it is that Basically, when you have the right to left movement, it stimulates the right and left hemispheres of your brain. So your corpus callosum, the communicator between the right and left hemisphere of the brain, gets lit up and it's able to send information from one hemisphere to the next. This is important because oftentimes, like the left hemisphere holds facts, like dates, information, basically judgment essentially of like, this is something that happened past, present, future. This is facts. This is kind of non-feeling stuff. Whereas the right hemisphere holds like our emotions, our present moment, things like that. And so you need both pieces of information in order to correctly or accurately or fully process like a thought, a feeling, an emotion, whatever. And so like that was kind of the way it was described to me, was that it was stimulating both of those sides of the hemisphere to create communication between them to create a full picture that you could process. And what we're learning now is like that might be the mechanism that's happening, but what really actually is working is the fact that you're asking your client to do something else while they are thinking about a traumatic memory or while they're thinking about an uncomfortable or distressing somatic situation that they're experiencing or have experienced. And so what that does is while you're able to hold those two things, your brain is busy processing or thinking about one thing while in the present moment you're doing something different that actually creates this taxation on your working memory. And so it kind of helps store the traumatic memory in a way that is less traumatic. And it's a really interesting way to think about it because what we've learned is that more information is coming out about the working memory and about taxation and like how that's actually really helpful for a lot of different reasons. And this new, I don't know if you've heard of EMDR 2.0.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so EMDR 2.0 is this new thing that came out about 3 years ago now, where it's the more bilateral stimulation or the more things that you do to incorporate taxing the working memory, the faster the memory will resolve or the faster the trauma will kind of desensitize and it will process through. And so, for example, if you have your clients not only have like tappers on or like little vibrating bracelets, and you're incorporating noise and you're incorporating like eye movements and you're incorporating them with a different task completely, like spell your name or count to 10 or say the alphabet backwards or something, while they're simultaneously holding on to the memory that they're processing, it has shown that it decreases it 10 times more effectively. I think the statistic is like 7 times more effectively than traditional EMDR therapy. And so that has kind of led a lot of people to be like, well, I mean, by adding bilateral stimulation, you're not increasing the communication between the right and left hemisphere more, but you are taxing the working memory more. And so maybe that's what we need to be looking into. And so now a lot of EMDR research is about the working memory and how that goes into like kind of can help process or de-traumatize a memory.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, yeah, I'm going to steal that from you.
Yeah, please do.
I love that. I also think that sounds great for clients who the memory that they're wanting to work on feels unapproachable,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, do you activate the memory first? I'm assuming, or like bring it up
Mm-hmm.
first, but you're turning that trauma brain on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my approach primarily right now is just somatic. Like I'll instead of like activating the whole memory. So for example, like if you were to activate a whole memory, that would look like, tell me as you're thinking about the memory now, if you could take a snapshot, describe to me what's the worst part about that memory for you. As you're thinking about the worst part of that, what negative cognition describes like how you feel about yourself in that situation, as you're thinking about this, blah, 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 blah. And then you get like a body scan. So then you say, okay, well, where are you feeling that in your body as you think about the negative cognition? And there's like a whole bunch of things that go down. How I would typically just bring up a memory would be, as you think about that, what are you feeling in your body now? And then we go from there.
Love that. Yeah, I have like one person in particular that I've been having a hard time guiding him through that. So yeah, I'm definitely going to steal that. No, that's really fucking cool.
I mean, and that's kind of this amazing like adaptation piece, right? Is that and the reason why I do that is because the clients that I work with usually have a horrific relationship with their body, meaning that like if they're a sexual assault survivor, something happened to their body that was non-consensual and they don't want to be in their body. They don't want to experience any emotions, they don't want to experience any feelings because their mind is trying to get them out of this really unsafe place, while the unsafe place is their body. And so there's a ton of dissociation. And then with first responders, like oftentimes they completely disconnect and they just go into problem solving or solution mode in order to focus whatever, but that they never come back to like, how did that trauma impact me? And so there's a huge disconnect between what their brain is doing and what their body is doing. And so my approach has adapted to be very somatic because I want them to feel their body. I want them to develop a positive relationship with their body when they're in the safety of my office. And like, this isn't appropriate for everyone. Like, there might be sometimes, especially with neurodivergent clients and trans folks, where they're like, my body doesn't feel safe. I don't want to go in there yet. And like, that's totally fine. This isn't about forcing people to be in their body, but it is about, if we can like create a healthier relationship with your body and give you, I don't know, an experience where you can feel an emotion and that doesn't feel overwhelming, or you can kind of prove to yourself over time, like, this distress is not permanent. It's not going to stay. Like, then we can process the bigger memories. And so that's kind of why I'm approaching it the way I am right now, because that's been proven to just work for my clients. If we just dive right into like the non-somatic piece, the cognitive piece of think about this memory, think about the colors, think about all the things you're experiencing when you're thinking about it, that's too heady. That they've already been in their fucking head for too long. They need to be in their body experiencing the present moment. And so for me, that's just kind of like why I've done that. And it's worked wonders.
Yeah. And you've said that you give your clients homework.
Definitely. Yes, absolutely.
Can you give me an example of what one thing might look like?
Yeah. So, for example, sometimes what happens when folks do EMDR or start EMDR therapy for the first time, they might notice that there's some changes in their dreams. They might notice that they feel maybe more overwhelmed or less overwhelmed. Triggers for dissociation might get better. They might get worse. Totally just dependent on whatever you got going on. And so with the tappers, sometimes it really helps to like have a tactile physical thing that you like suit up, you put them on, you're physically doing something to ground yourself in the present moment. And as you're wearing them, it reminds you to kind of be in this present moment so that you're not finding yourself too deep in the memory or too deep in a flashback or too deep in, did I do this wrong? What am I thinking about myself? And all the negative cognitions. So it's a really intentional grounding thing for them. And it's something that widens their window of tolerance. So if they're feeling like, I can't stop thinking about this really traumatic thing that happened, the BiTaps are not there. The tappers that I use are not there to do self-administered EMDR on themselves. It is only to be used for a grounding and for an emotional processing. Like, as I'm wearing the tappers, what am I noticing in my body? And it is just for them to use the tappers to have a guide of, I'm feeling the tappers, therefore I'm feeling my body. If I can feel the tappers, I can tap into an emotion and I can feel that. And so It really is just kind of this guide to help them be more somatically in tune with themselves.
Do you recommend your clients doing that when they're full 10 out of 10 distressed?
Yeah, I would say for them, it's the moment that you notice that you are either going to be distressed or you are noticing yourself like thinking about things, and now, your heart's racing or your stomach is aching or, something's happening. Some somatic thing is cueing you into, you might not be aware that you're thinking about this, but this is definitely on your mind. And so I would use it more of like a preventative thing. Because if they're in full blown panic, chances are their coordination is not going to be good enough in order to get some tappers on or even set up the app on their phone or, whatever that looks like for them. And so for that, it's like we got a whole separate plan for if panic strikes. This is more of like a very preventative thing of, this is kind of, again, sort of building that positive relationship with your body that like you can get through hard things.
Christina, thank you so much for coming on. I have learned a good chunk of things from you that I'm going to be implementing.
Hell yeah. Do it.
You best believe I will be doing it. No, and this is why I like having this podcast and talking with other therapists about things that I'm trained in, but things I'm not trained in, because I get to learn.
Yeah, totally.
On top of that.
Yeah.
And that helps my clients. And I also steal them from myself. Those too. So
I love it.
Win.
Yeah. I love that. It's kind of like getting your own like private like training, right? It's like, and with trainings, like if it's not applicable to you, don't even worry about it, right? So like if another EMDR therapist hears me talking about, somatic shit, like, and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to go try that, and it doesn't work, that's totally fine. Like, that doesn't mean that what I'm saying is like the cure all for, dissociation or body dysmorphia or whatever that is. And also, like, if this is resonating with you as like, oh shit, I know a client that could work for, and this is going to be great, then I would encourage you to try that, because your instinct, because your clients, is probably spot on. And so if that feels like, yeah, I'm definitely going to try that, then I would highly encourage that you do that.
Christina, is there any last bit of knowledge you want to drop or leave with people before we close?
I would say for EMDR therapists, there's so many things to say about like what it feels like to be a new therapist starting with EMDR or starting to do EMDR on other people. Fake it till you make it in terms of confidence. Like truly, it is a use it or lose it skill, I feel, when you're first starting out. And if you are too scared to use it, you will not use it. So just like, and I don't mean fake it till you make it, like tell your fucking clients that you're a pro at EMDR when you have just learned it, but like super transparent with them and be like, I am learning this. I'm still developing my confidence with this. Like it's going to take me a little bit, but I'm going to get it. And just really, really try to be confident with it, because if you are like, nope, I'm too being competent, I can't do this, I'm going to fuck somebody up, I'm not going to do it right. Like I promise you, like that is the detriment of you and your clients. If you do not learn EMDR, like your clients will suffer because you just won't know that skill to then teach them. And so that would be the thing for therapists. And for clients who might be listening to this, or potential people who are like, oh, I might want to try EMDR therapy, or I'm too scared to try it. For the love of God, find someone who has been trained through EMDRIA. That's the EMDR International Association. For the love of God, find someone who's been trained from them. If you don't, you probably will be traumatized. So don't do that. And if your therapist tries to do EMDR with you, meaning the bilateral stimulation, on the first session without getting really any background information and not understanding your window of tolerance, run for your fucking life, because that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the therapeutic relationship and trust and rapport is the most important thing to predict therapy outcomes. And so if you do not trust your therapist, regardless if they're EMDR or not, it won't work. So just make sure that if you are shopping for an EMDR therapist, you're shopping for someone cool as fuck who knows what the hell they're doing.
Amen.
Amen.
I was like more to that because I'm like, and yes.
Yes.
Christina, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for having me and inviting me.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to learn more about Christina or even work with her, you practice in Washington?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Washington State.
Lovely. I'm going to put her information in the description below so you can hit her up, check out her website, her social media, which is very entertaining, by the way. And yeah, and so that is it for today, guys. I will see you all next week.
Thanks for hanging out with me on Trauma Tea and Tangents. If something here made you laugh, cry, or feel a little bit more seen, then my job here is done. Remember, this isn't therapy, but if you are curious about the real thing, you can check out my practice, Revive Therapy Services. And if you are wanting more tangents, tea, and truth bombs, make sure to follow, subscribe, or share this with someone who just gets it. Until next time, take care of your nervous system, drink some water, and please stop trying to diagnose your ex.